dignified transfer of his remains, which arrived on Thanksgiving Day. Riley attended Grove City High School and was the captain of his football team. After the coach's career, a kid comes along who changes things. They are born leaders and hard workers. They celebrate successes better than anyone and are the first to help others overcome disappointment. They are kind and decent, and they leave their stamp on everyone's heart. Riley is survived by his parents, Rodney and Michelle, 2 older siblings, and a large extended family. His Army awards and decorations include the Bronze Star Medal, Purple Heart, Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, Army Good Conduct Medal, and National Defense Service Medal, Afghanistan Campaign Medal with Campaign Star, Global War and Terrorism Service Medal, Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Service Ribbon, the NATO Medal, Combat Infantry Badge, and the Basic Parachutist Badge. We send our gratitude and heartfelt condolences to this young man's family and his friends.
Thank you, everyone. And if I could ask the 2 young ladies here, the daughters of our guest, if they would like to come up here and hold the flag while we do the Pledge of Allegiance. Blue field goes top left. The other way. Just rotate around. Okay, yeah, just walk down there. Yeah. No problem. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Just sit over there and then. Diana? Diana? Would you like to introduce our guest? Oh, I thought I said it to you. Okay. Well, they're getting this up. Ladies and gentlemen, this thing this morning was rather poignant, especially after Memorial Day that we just celebrated this past Monday. Cities right now is totally reprehensible. I can't believe that this great nation of ours is under attack from within and outside forces. But when our own people, probably who have never stood in the middle of a consecrated grounds such as Arlington, or right over here in Suffolk at Alfred Horton National, or Bushnell in Florida, and all the other military cemeteries are saving their country. They've never stood in the middle of one of these and thanked God that they're living in America. And now they're trying to destroy it. And this is a broad brush, but it's beginning in the classrooms of this country. And it's very unfortunate, and we're going to be talking about CRT and all these other things too that coming up in our rally. So Diana, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. The Tidewater Libertarian Party and the Virginia Beach Tea Party are proud to have Liz Dickinson. She is the director for America Majority. She has a background in activism and outreach, county leadership, and national security. Recruited by the CIA during graduate school, Liz moved to Virginia and began her career as an intelligence analyst. She briefed and wrote finished intelligence for senior U.S. officials on Russian political military issues. While she enjoyed working for the agency, she wanted to become directly involved in the political process. Liz earned a Master of Arts degree in International Policy Studies, Non-Proliferation, and a Bachelor of Arts in Russian and Political Science. She is a news junkie who enjoys politics, international relationships, and spending time with her family. A lover of all things Virginia, she is excited to work with conservatives across the Commonwealth. She resides with her husband and her 7 children in Leesburg, Virginia. I welcome Liz Dickinson.
Hello again. Thank you, Diana. So she was saying I'm the Virginia Executive Director for American Majority. We are, if you're not familiar with us, we're a national organization. We're actually headquartered in Loudoun County, but we've actually only had an active Virginia office since 2019. So we always need a donor to be excited. So
Yeah.
okay, better? Okay, thanks. I'm short, so now I'm perfect. So we have 3 offices, main offices. We have Virginia, Wisconsin is our largest, and Minnesota, which you have, all states that have been in the news in the 2020 cycle. We do a range of trainings, training conservative activists, students, candidates as well. This year we have really started, we have just written this brand new presentation on election integrity coming off of the 2020 election. Raise your hand if you think that that was a legitimate election. Yeah, right? So we had to come up with something, right? So we're trying to address this. So we do other trainings, but this year, really, this is only the second time that I'm giving this because this is kind of brand new, hot off the presses. So you guys get the initial runs of these things, but just trying to get out to as many people as we can the important information of what happened, some of what you can do. I know this is a very active group and you do a lot already, but just trying to give people tangible ideas of and a little bit of background of actually what happened, other than we're not going to address a lot of like Dominion voting systems and things like that, which I do believe were an issue, but it's harder to get tangible proof on in certain things. But some of the things we're going to talk about are easy to prove. If you didn't get, we have over here on the table, there are folders with some information in them. There are pens, there's little glasses cleaners. Everyone has glasses, so that's kind of nice. There's also a sign-in sheet going around. If you can sign that and put even if it's just your name and email, but put your email clearly, because after I'm done with this, I email all the slides out so that you're not having to worry about taking copious notes during the presentation. Yeah, and I'm a Virginia girl. I've been here for 22 years now, and I started with CIA, but I left actually to homeschool my kids, and so I've been doing that also. I'm up in Loudoun County, which you've seen is in the news for all the wrong things over and over and over, with the critical race, which Robert mentions, and the gay agenda, a lot of things happening up there, but thankfully it's awakened a lot of parents who otherwise are not involved in things to really get involved and to fight it. So actually the circuit court heard the case yesterday of the teacher, you probably heard about this yesterday, Tanner, who was put on leave by Loudoun County for speaking out about critical race theory and the harm that it does to children. So he's on leave. The circuit court heard his case yesterday, and they'll decide whether they'll reinstate him. But this is more important than his job, is it will set precedent nationally whether they can silence teachers when they're acting in their First Amendment rights as private citizens. Okay. American Majority is the nation's premier conservative training organization. We're a 501c3 organization tax-wise. We have a sister organization, American Majority Action, which is our C4, which I also head up for Virginia. That is where we do more political kind of stuff. We don't partner with candidates necessarily, but we target certain key races. We're targeting, I think, 7 this year. We need 6 to hold, and I think 7 to flip, or 6 to flip in the House of Delegates. So we're going to be targeting that. We have teams of door knockers and all that kind of stuff, similar to what I'm sure you guys are involved in there. We believe key here is we believe that meaningful change starts here at the local level, local and state, not in DC, thankfully, because how much change actually happens in DC for the good, anyway, not very good, so that's where we focus. Contact information, Again, this will be in the slides if you could bring me your email. And our website is americanmajority.org. And on there we also offer online training classes if you want. Those are not live training. So we have a list under trainings tab. We'll show things like this, like live trainings that you can attend. But there are also self-paced online courses, mostly activism and training to be a candidate. So we will cover in the time we have today history of changing election laws, how the big rig, this is what we're calling it, happened in 2020, and what we can do about it. In your folder, there should be there's an insert on election integrity, which is kind of a nice little snapshot of what we're going to talk about too. All right, the big rig, this is big tech, big unions, big corporations, and big money colluding to defeat President Trump. And this started well before 2020. They told us what we'd do it, okay? And you know, we're all Republican, right? Fine.
No.
Well, or former, but yeah. But the inactivity of the party to combat this, when they see this over and over in the works, is troubling us anyway. But so they told us ahead of time what they were going to do. You can see here the Never Trumpers, John Podesta, Bill Kristol, saying how they were going to go after this. Right here, their scorched earth strategy was going to be widespread mail-in voting, which they were able to get, to delay the official results so they can manipulate the outcome, and until the Republicans would cry uncle, which normally does not take very long, does it? And the notion that if he loses, President Trump would claim that it was a stolen election. So they set all of it in motion. If you remember back when President Trump and Joe Biden were debating, and they kept trying to press President Trump to say that he would accept the results, and he kept saying if it's a fair election. They were trying to set the groundwork then for him to say, because they knew they were going to be cheating. Did you all read the Time article? Time magazine article? Well, this was very interesting. This was from February last year, and February this year. Basically, it's very interesting because Time is very liberal. Did you read it, Kathleen? And and basically they came out and admitted that everything that we had said was true, but saying, this is the highlight parts. But talking about participants want a secret history of the 2020 election told. Sounds like paranoid fever dream. We were all told we had tinfoil hats, right? Basically here, behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control flow of information. Remember this, they were not rigging the election, they were fortifying it. So this is their new buzzword for basically treasonous cheating. In a way, Trump was right. How many times have we said Trump was right in the past couple months? Like, and this past week with all the Fauci stuff too. Trump was right, Trump was right. The conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. And we'll talk a little bit about a few of those CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. Okay. And then this is after Election Day, they were monitoring basically so that Trump could not overturn the results. And we saw that in the courts, right? The courts wouldn't even hear his arguments. The sitting president of the United States, and they would not hear his arguments. Their work touched, again, they're talking about the alliance of the left. Their work touched on every aspect of the election. They got states to change voting systems and laws and help secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding. We're going to get into that in a minute in CTCL, which includes Mark Zuckerberg, and fended off voter suppression lawsuits. That's what he said. They say that we are suppressing the vote. That's not our wording. We're not. They recruited armies of poll workers. We saw that in Philadelphia, right? Election laws. This is the U.S. Constitution, which we are supposed to be following, lays out election laws, and it just basically says that the state legislatures oversee elections and make election laws, and in some rare cases it's Congress, but it is never unelected officials. It's not supposed to be unelected officials. Federal government's passed numerous measures to protect voting rights. The U.S. Constitution gives states the responsibility of overseeing these federal elections. Okay. What is election integrity? First, make sure I understand it. It's in the very basic sense, it's the free and fair election. It's your most basic civil right as an American citizen. And all of our other rights depend on that. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes too. And then conversely, what is election fraud? The most general sense, any attempt to subvert or manipulate the election by illegal means. So basically that is 2020 in a nutshell. Election fraud, there are all sorts of types, and they were really good about hitting a lot of them. Impersonation fraud at the polls. You saw that Virginia has, starting November 2020, we don't need an ID anymore to go to the polls, right? So right there, impersonation. False registration, duplicate voting. I will say personally in Loudoun County that when I was vice chair of the GOP up there, we would go to the different precincts, and we were constantly calling in, you're supposed to call in your election lawyers to come to bad precincts, basically. And there was one precinct, and this is a problem because the county keeps her in charge. We're talking about the paid poll worker, the precinct captain. They keep her there. This is over in Ashburn. But she was caught twice on election day when Barack Obama was running, giving minorities 2 ballots and said in case one didn't feed through. So we sent the lawyers. Again, in the afternoon, we got another call. Same woman, sent her in. She also was taking them, I think it's somewhere in here, but illegal assistance at the polls, taking voters aside secretly and talking them aside, which she's not allowed to do either. But troubling is that she's there every year, so she wasn't fired over this. But 2 ballots, and that's one precinct, and that just happens to be that one of us was there to see it. So there are millions of precincts throughout the U.S. So. Fraudulent use of absentee ballots. How many people said that they got 2 ballots or more with this mail-in thing in 2020? Many. Altering the vote count, buying votes, and ballot petition fraud. That could be like ballot harvesting. Do people get caught? Sometimes. At least there are some. But here's 6. But how many more, have not been caught or brought to justice? A lot. We have a history of the left changing election laws. They've long viewed election laws as the opportunity to change the rules of the game and push their agenda. One of the ways they do that are all mail-in elections. Recently, the left's election reforms have tried to mail everyone a ballot. You guys saw, even France has outlawed all mail-in ballots because of fraud. And did you guys see that this year Amazon, after all this happened, did you guys see with Amazon? Amazon, they had their shareholders votes, and Bezos refused to let them do mail-in ballots because of possibility of cheating. The irony of this, right? So they had to go in person after he pushed for 5 states, as you can see, with the exception of Utah, are blue, held elections by mail even before 2020. So these Democrat states were already doing it. California, Nevada, New Jersey, Michigan, Vermont, and DC all opted proactively to send out these ballots by mail for 2020 because of COVID. Again, Michigan, those are all blue. Any opposition to the left's voting changes results in name calling from the left and the media. So when we try to basically ensure safe and secure elections. What are some things you think that they accuse us of? Yep, racist. We're in the process right now, American Majority, we're doing a texting campaign. We're texting into, I think, Congressional District 7 right now. And we're basically saying, well, do you support election integrity? The number of people that are like, no, stick it, you're a racist, you just don't want blacks to be able to vote. And I'm like, no. So we send them the legislation. We say, read the legislation. There's nothing about race in any of these, but them trying to make it basically undo all of the things that we have done to try to secure elections in Virginia. But that's exactly the first thing they say is racism. Lawfare. What is lawfare? Has everyone heard that term before? Yeah, the left is really good at this. It's using the law as a weapon. The left seeks to change election laws to get more votes for their side, and they did a lot of this in 2020 through lawsuits, executive orders, health emergency orders because of, again, COVID, and passing new laws. So they lawfare, basically they just use the legislature and lawmaking to their advantage. Particularly a team of lawyers will come up. Okay, big money, we have George Soros, who we tried to track some of his donations into Virginia Commonwealth's attorneys' races in 2019, and he has so many front organizations. We like at 40 organizations we just gave up. There was just too many that he owns. Tom Steyer and of course Bloomberg giving money here, there, and everywhere to the left. His Soros groups funded a bunch of the mail-in voting. Looks trustworthy, doesn't it? Anyone know who this is? This is Mark Elias. Yes. So I think he's a Perkins Cole lawyer, which is a very large law firm in the United States. Quote at the top is from President Trump. He called Mark Elias their best election-stealing lawyer. Funny enough, Mark Elias was just sanctioned this year. He tried to sue the state of Texas to expand ballot access because of COVID. And then he accused Texas of scrapping some straight ticket voting during COVID. But apparently this had been thrown out by a Texas court previously, and he brought it again. So he was sanctioned with ethics violations because he never disclosed it to the court. And so he had to pay, 2 times the legal fees, which, it's something. So. Yeah. So also Mark Elias, just as some background, he was general counsel for Kamala Harris's 2020 run and for Hillary Clinton 2016. And the irony is they represented a Democrat in New York who earlier this year ran and lost. Did you guys see this in the news? And when his client lost the race, Elias tried to say it was because of election fraud, which is hilarious. So that he made the same, on Twitter, he made the same accusations that got President Trump thrown off of there, basically, saying that it was unfair. But tabulation errors. Basically, they were saying the machines were flipping votes, which was ironic, of course, because of all the Dominion voting systems accusations at the time. Since 2019, Elias has built $41 million to left-wing groups, just since 2019. Why does it matter about this guy? Well, because he's a zealous advocate, he's high profile, and what's he go after? State election laws on behalf of clients who always claim voter ID and disenfranchisement and everything else of his clients to try to, basically to help them be able to cheat. He's opposed to bans on ballot harvesting. And ballot harvesting is basically when you get people to go, instead of you completing your ballot and turning it in, you can go like door to door and get lots of ballots and just turn them in, but there's no checks, there's no like signature matches. It's ripe with crime. 9 states where rules for voting had been changed or challenged before 2020 are right there. This is an article on that from NBC. Georgia, Wisconsin, Mississippi, Florida, Ohio, Tennessee, Arizona, New York, California, and I added in Virginia, because I didn't mention that, is we've had several changes made by the General Assembly coming into effect in 2021, but here are some of the ones that were in effect in time for the 2020 election for President Trump. No excuse absentee ballot voting. You used to have to say why you were voting, in person or whatever, ahead of the election. Got rid of that. No photo ID requirement. I know when I went in 2020 to vote and handed them my license, they actually turned it over so they couldn't see the picture, scanned the back, and said, we don't look at that anymore. I was like, I'm offering you something that they wouldn't look. Automatic voter registration when you go to the DMV. My daughter just got her license, my older daughter, the other day, and we went, and it was basically opted her in for being registered to vote. She's 19. She's been registered since she turned 18, so we opted out, but it used to be that you had to opt in, so now it's, basically the opt-out. The left does this all the time. But they have some more egregious changes coming in 2021, if you guys were following at all. There were a couple of them were, HB 1888, which is going to be allowing drop-off boxes. Oh, you have a question?
I was just going to ask you about the photo ID requirement.
Yes.
How many countries in Europe and the rest of the civilized world do not require photo ID?
Yeah, most do, exactly. I think we're becoming uncivilized. I think we're trying to be like a third world country, apparently. I don't know. I guess you can just put on your Antifa shirt and throw away your, license, and it's all good. I don't know. HB 1888 is going to allow drop-off boxes, which we have not had in Virginia before. Unattended, completed drop-off boxes, random places. It will drop restrictions on absentee voting for the first time that you vote. You used to have to vote in person your first time, and now they want, because they want all these younger people. There's some other odd ones too, which I didn't write here, but there's another one that is going to pre-register 16-year-olds to vote, so then they're automatically registered at 18. I don't know, it's younger and younger. Oh, and allowing for ballot curing, which we have never allowed in Virginia before. Do you guys know what ballot curing is? It's basically if there's an issue with your ballot, like you've mailed it in, say the signature verification doesn't match, they allow you to come after Election Day to the registrar and fix it so that they can count your ballot. Pennsylvania was allowing this for 11 days after Election Day last year of lots of fixes to ballots that shouldn't have been counted, basically. Senate Bill 1097 this year repeals absentee ballots being opened in the presence of a witness and a witness signature. That to me is, that's one of the most egregious that's come out of this General Assembly this year. So you used to have to, when you open an absentee mail-in ballot, someone would have to witness that it and it was a legitimate ballot, and then they would sign it, but that's all gone. So you can be in a closet opening ballots and there's no witness at all. The only good election legislation I saw out of Virginia this year was from Jen Higgins, who's down here. And she was trying to have them clean up voter rolls more frequently. Do you think that passed? No, of course not. No. The only good thing, and they rejected it.
Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
Does that legislation, like House Bill 1, federal, does that include same-day registration?
I don't believe it.
Same-day registration?
Yeah, I don't believe it does. Does anyone know? I've gone through all the legislation in the LIS, and I have not seen that. I think they're probably depending on HB1 to pass, and then they won't need it at the state level. Okay, what happened? So there's our little COVID-19 virus. Never let a crisis go to waste. Who said that? Remember? Rahm Emanuel, and it was based on Saul Alinsky's book, right? The mastermind of the left. So COVID-19 was basically the best gift to the left in abusing, using it to their advantage to start cheating and government control and everything else. And who's following the Fauci emails? Yeah, interesting. Yeah, exactly. So when I was at CIA, a lot of the things I actually did Russian biological weapons was kind of my pet project. And so I said, actually I've had it pinned in my Twitter feed for a year saying that this came out of the Wuhan lab and that it was genetically engineered, and I got called every kind of conspiracy theorist, whatever, and I was able to tweet the other day, I guess my tinfoil hat's not so shiny anymore, right? Yeah, but he needs to be, people are calling for him to be fired, but he needs to be in jail. He needs to be in jail. All the people, yeah. They had an interesting thing, this is a little bit off topic, but they had an interesting thing online the other day where people could list basically what has Dr. Fauci's lockdowns cost your family, and just, the list of people, people dying in hospital alone because they couldn't see them. He does not need to just be fired. And my conspiracy hat on, think it goes higher than him. So we'll see. Okay, so what happened when COVID-19 came to town? The left used it to pass election law changes that have been on their wish list for a time. Right? There's the perfect timing for them, which is also suspicious. There's some really perfect timing, isn't it, for it to be hitting our U.S. They used lawsuits to challenge voter integrity law beginning in the spring of 2020, which was when the COVID outbreak started. They started filing massive numbers of lawsuits. So people start locking down and dying, and the first thing that these guys do is they lawyer up and run and start doing legislation. Lawsuits sought to set aside the things that we were talking about previously: witness requirements, ID requirements, any kind of deadline, like Pennsylvania with the 11 days after Election Day, delivery requirements, ballot deadlines, signature requirements, application requirements. Virginia has done all or most of these with this General Assembly, and Northam signed them all immediately. This is why elections are so important. And then on top of legislative, they have executive action. Swing state governors, that's the governor of Minnesota, also started issuing emergency executive orders regarding elections, trying to get people to vote in person, in advance, and not show up at the polls. As I was saying, we have him. Therefore, and somehow he was saying they made it, the mayor of Milwaukee was saying how it somehow was Trump's fault that they had closed. These are all state and city ordinances, but in Michigan, Secretary of State Benson mailed absentee ballots to 7.7 preemptively And this is where we got some of the people saying, hey, I got like 3 ballots in the mail. And those are the honest ones saying, I'm only going to vote 1 because that's, illegal. But you have to wonder how many people said, oh, great, I'm going to vote 3. Talk a little bit about with the big tech. CTCL, I'll talk about in a few minutes, but that is largely funded by Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook CEO. In Pennsylvania, they paid election judges. They paid judges and mandated that Philadelphia, remember Philadelphia was the scene of all that stuff on election day? Checking people in to vote with the Biden-Harris masks. They weren't even hiding the fact that you're not supposed to be partisan when you're actually at the precinct. They mandated Philadelphia increase polling locations and use drop boxes and then even mobile pickup units, basically people going around to your houses picking up. 1 drop box placed for every 4 square miles for every 4,000 voters. But then looking at the 59 counties that were Trump counties, they had 1 drop box for every 1,100 square miles and every 72,000 voters. Yeah. Unelected official. She unilaterally, unconstitutionally, so she overrode the state's signature verification statute. Remember, President Trump was kindly railing about this rightfully before. She extended the deadline for, that is, the state legislatures that are in charge of elections and any laws that go along with elections, not unelected officials. And she basically completely overrode what the legislature did, and the GOP there really did not push back. So, there you have it. Had 11 days after that they could fix their ballots. It's completely violation of Pennsylvania law. And again, the law is what's supposed to dictate elections. CTCL was here in Virginia as well. They spent $4 million just in Virginia in 2020, boosting Biden votes. Look at a couple local kind of stats. Fairfax County, who was surprised by this, not really me, was their biggest spend. They spent which basically turns out to $3.41 for every Biden vote they got. He got the biggest vote in Fairfax County, followed by Prince William. It's kind of, Prince William County is a wannabe Fairfax County. Everything bad Fairfax does, Prince William is always on their heels wanting to be just as bad, whether it's schools or taxes or anything else. Loudoun County was 3rd, and Biden won by 56,000 votes. And again, this is assuming these are all legally cast, counted votes, but Fairfax County, if you don't know, is the one we always cringe on election night when we're nothing, again, no heads roll, there are no precinct chiefs that are fired. I think start fining these people, big fines, and this will stop the people that are overseeing the precincts. Yep. So nearly 16, so now moving to Georgia. Remember, Georgia was like a big battleground, and we were hoping that the government would have been more helpful there, Governor Kemp. Nearly $16 million in CTCL grant money went to local election officials in the blue strongholds of Fulton, Cobb, and Gwinnett counties. And this is very interesting to me. So absentee rejection, and it gets tossed out. In 2016, the rejection rate was 6.42%. 2020 was 0.37%. 2020 should have been higher just for the sheer number of more, ballots that they were getting in the mail. But Georgia Secretary of State Raffensperger, who's a Republican, supposedly, settled with Democratic Party to make it harder to challenge signature match on absentee ballots. He's basically was a huge obstacle to all conservative efforts in Georgia. And we had a new absentee record. 2016, 33 million person. Yeah. Yes, good. Keep doing it. And who tends to vote early? You guys, who votes early in general? More. Yeah? Yep. You guys vote? Yep. Okay, good. And which party do you think tends to vote mail-in early? Right, Democrat.
Level, the education level that kind of corresponded with their view. Postgraduate degrees tend to vote by now 54% of the time. If you think more educated, you would know that there's more right to fraud. It's completely the opposite. Whereas you go down to, and there's all gradations, people with high school diploma or less, they vote in person 68% of the time. So,
Hey Liz,
Yeah.
If you want to move back over there, I'll move everything over.
So, I guess it just kind of, it's more validation that the longer you spend in college, the less common sense you have, I guess. I don't know, as we talk about, you know, our kids that were conservatives when they leave home, and then they turn into liberals when they, you know, the teachers have them for 1 year at college. Yeah, I think they're drinking the liberal Kool-Aid of it, but I just found that very interesting. And I will say that Loudoun and Fairfax have a high number of postgraduate degrees person earlier or whatever, but not for any real reason. But I think that they have more fun. No problem. We're being focused. Okay. They also seek to expand the voter pool, and here is, I think this is Florida, dollars into Florida to help restore voting rights for felons. So basically, you'll see here, in order for Florida, if you have been convicted of a felony and you've served your time, you're not eligible to pay dues. So you had all these felons, so they want to vote Democrat down there. So Bloomberg swoops in and pays off all their court fees so that they can vote. And who do you think they're going to vote for? The guy that, you know, pays off their stuff, right? Yeah. Ballot harvesting we talked about a bit. Gathering and submitting of completed absentee ballots or mail-in voter ballots by third-party individuals, and it does not have to be one-on-one. Like if I went and took yours and turned it in, but I could get all of yours and just turn them in en masse. So obviously there's no ID. This became an issue starting in 2018 in California. I went to grad school in California, and I decided I did not want to raise my children in California, but it was pretty good. The left harvested and collected enough ballots to overcome vote deficits. This is kind of like, does anyone like, say Nick Freitas, as we followed his race last year? That was one that we played heavily in, and he was ahead on election night, just like lots of people. And then they found just enough on the thumb drive for Spanberger to win. They're always fun to make up the voter deficits, right? And they're always smart enough to get just enough over, because, you know, 1%, if you're within 1%, you get an automatic state paid, recount. They always find just enough that it's over that, so then the losing candidate will have to pay for the recount, and it's expensive. So particularly for conservatives, we spend wisely. We don't have, we're not bankrolled by the DNC. We don't have millions of dollars sitting there to pay for these things, which they know, so they always find just enough that that person would have to pay for it. And then they'll end up losing at the end because they'll find some other kind of votes in the recount. Wasn't it Obenchain where it was like, and then they did the recount and then they found more against him. So it never works in our favor. And conservative candidates in California this year were basically ahead. And then when they got the late arriving votes, suddenly they all lost. AB 1921. This was then Governor Jerry Brown. He legalized ballot harvesting, and Orange County, yeah, they even let political operatives go and turn it in. So you could have DNC operatives come to your house and turn in your votes. So in Orange County, which is considered in California a GOP conservative county compared to the rest of California, they were winning, and it's a stronghold. They solidly usually hold on to it, but the population's not as high as like LA, so it offsets it. But then every seat went to the left after 250,000 vote by mail drop-offs were suddenly counted. Yeah, in Orange County. I mean, for it to go blue, that's just, for all of them particularly, it makes no sense. This is just showing that different states have different rules about returning ballots. You can choose someone. It's not the best map, it's the only one we find, but really, because it doesn't really show. I wish the map showed, like the color would show how strict the laws are. It really doesn't. It just shows kind of gradations of whether they have laws or they don't. Big tech, with all the big tech. Facebook, Instagram. Who owns Instagram? Facebook. Twitter, all the ones where President Trump was banned from. Working together, we talked about CTCL, which we're going to now get into in a little bit more detail. 2020 presidential election witnessed an unprecedented and coordinated public-private partnership to improperly influence the 2020 election. This
public-private partnership. And this has to do with, tax-exempt organizations getting involved in areas they ought not to be and should lose their tax-exempt status.
Amen.
Two-tier system, which we just talked about a little bit with the ballot boxes, and the blue strongholds having a lot of ballot drop-off boxes compared to the red strongholds having hardly any. Hundreds of millions of dollars from Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg and other high-tech interest activist organizations created this two-tiered election system, treating them differently, like I said, with the drop boxes and the blue holds versus the red holds. Center for Tech and Civic Life was founded in 2015 by political operatives who I believe worked on the Obama campaign. Mark Zuckerberg alone donated $350 million to CTCL to help run the 2020 elections. And this is without all his, this is just donations. This isn't, Facebook to me, I would consider, in-kind donations, same as Twitter, by the way, that they block dissenting voices, and they, target their advertising. They do, basically they can do their algorithms to promote the candidates they want. So I would consider this in-kind donations on top of this. It was a 501c4 organization that trained progressive organizers, and you can see here with the Obama's digital outreach. And as I said, our sister organization's a 501c4. This is not allowed. You don't want to read outdoors. We have a C4. We have to do a period of issues based when we do doors or phones or whatever. We have to do issues first, and there's only this small percentage of the time that we're allowed to do direct advocacy for candidates, and that's like the last, it's a percentage of, from when you started, but it's at the very end, or we'll lose our tax-exempt status. They still have their tax-exempt status. They're not a PAC. Private monies dictated city and county election management, contrary to both federal and state law. And again, they're usurping the right of the legislature to control the elections that's afforded to them by the Constitution. But the Constitution to lefties, to liberals is not very important, right? Yes, I hope so. The liberals is not very important. Okay, what can we do? Honestly, I'd say meetings, you guys meeting regularly is one thing to do because you care and are involved. A lot of people, how many people are still in bed? Probably a lot. So that's one. Run for office and recruit candidates. So recruit good candidates. Don't wait until, locally I've seen this. They wait till, we'll figure it out in July. For the November election, you're looking for a candidate this late. You need to be looking for good people. And a lot of them come out of activists. Basically, your best candidates to me are people that have been involved. They've knocked doors, they've been involved, but that they are credentialed conservatives. They're not just coming out of nowhere saying they want to run, or come out of nowhere and saying I want to run for president. They've done nothing else, and you have no idea where they are on things. Yeah. So recruiting good candidates, and you yourself may be a good candidate. And I will say American Majority does campaign training. So we train people interested in running for office. We have a lot that we're doing this year. Northern Virginia has several House of Delegates seats that we're trying to challenge, so I'm going to be doing a 2-part training for those guys. And school board. Actually, I did a training Thursday night, and there was a gentleman there running for school board. Do you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
This is near and dear to my heart.
All right.
November 2020 election night, we have 101 precincts here in Virginia Beach. I won 90 city council. And I'm up by 10,000, almost 11,000 votes. Maybe Tom Billy's the only one who probably didn't vote for everything. But we were up, and then when the early absentee ballots came in, my opponent, who was the incumbent, won by 19,000. Mathematically, that is not possible.
Right.
So my question is, when you're saying run for office, recruit candidates, and again, I wasn't well funded. I was not funded by the machine, just activists, great people in the room, always supported me. But how do you ensure, because you got people like Laura, she's running this time, how do we ensure that when we recruit these people, they're just not out there by themselves to run, and then their message gets out there, they're running against flawed candidates, but they don't win because they can't fight the machine. I mean, literally the machine. I'm not talking about like the mail machine. I'm talking about like the voter machine. And what's so funny, what I heard is so many elected leaders or party officials, it couldn't happen, you know, just accept it. And it's just like, inside, I've lost a few of them before, but this one here didn't feel right.
Yeah, that
you know?
doesn't sound
This
right
one
with
didn't
those
feel right,
numbers.
and it certainly didn't feel right. And so, how do you ensure that doesn't happen when you try to recruit these candidates, but also what safeguards are, how are we being activists on that it doesn't happen? Because we can't get control of our city government. My opponent was the worst ever. I think she's unified everybody on city council, everyone hates her. And so how do we, what is this group doing to ensure that, that these elections are going to be fair, and how are we watching the literal machine?
Right, so that'll get to that a little bit. I was going to call, so in addition to being campaign, there's a slide on it, but we need conservatives to be in the polling rooms. We need people to be precinct chiefs, that the ones that check in the morning and go and say, okay, this machine is on 0 now, and now it's on 2010 at the end of the day. And then we also need people to be the poll watcher who's there saying, yes, that's 0, yes, that's 2010. And then watching the returns at the end of the night and say, these numbers don't match up with that. So that's one thing.
Is there a way to verify that the machines in any precinct that this precinct chief is looking at are not connected to an internet?
That is a good point. I'm not sure. I don't know. And I know, because I think it's by county, the types of machines that they use. Because I know Loudoun County, they were doing the touch screen for a long, they started doing that and we all had a fit. So then they added the option for paper that gets fed in. But again, the paper ballots are the best, but whether they're connected to the internet or not, that feeds the result. But at least they have, benefit of the paper machines is you're filling it in even if it's connected to something. They have those physical ballots in the machine at the other night if they have to do a recount or, to check things. But the electronic ones, they're just gone and you have no idea, which is why they pushed for that. So we are pushing for, again, you'll see some things here. So basically our organization, we don't do like a whole lot. We just train people. That's what we do, trying to get them. But having people in there is important. Having good candidates like you run and not give up saying what's the point is a big thing.
But also too, I think you hit something on the head just then, and because it's been communicated among conservatives about going and being poll watchers. Well, the way I'm looking at it is the Democrat Party or the liberals have done a great job with not just being poll workers, they're poll workers. They're actually being paid, and so they're actually, that might be a better push that we're actually becoming election officials, because when people come to the polls, I've seen this in the past few elections, people already know what they're voting for because they've already gotten stuff from, for us standing outside with a pamphlet, spend all this money on pamphlets. You might sway maybe 20 or 30 voters, but out of that 500 that come in there, they already know what they're voting for.
Yeah, well, the people handing out the sample ballots would be like just volunteers with the party. So, like you said, the poll workers that get paid to be there all day, that was the first one I was saying that we need, like the precinct captains. Those are the ones, the precinct captain is the paid person that oversees everything there. They oversee all the machines. If you have a question, they make sure, if you say I can't hear or there's a problem with that, whatever, they're the ones that they'll come out. Sometimes they'll come out and talk to, try to gauge the room as well. And then you have the people paid that sit at the table and check people in. And then on top, so those are all the paid ones, and we definitely encourage people to do that because really being precinct chief is very important. You have a lot of power over that, and you certify at the end of the night that. But on top of that, then we also still do need the volunteers so not the outside people, but the inside people that sit behind the table and check off. In Virginia, you can't be an independent poll watcher. You have to have a signed letter authorizing you from either a candidate or a party to be there. But they're pretty flexible in Virginia. I guess it kind of depends on locality. I know I've done this in Loudoun, and you can sit near the table. You just can't disrupt anything. And you're allowed to have your smartphone even. We would check off who's voted and then send it in at certain times. And also vote numbers are important. To send in to make sure that you're turning out because all these things have to line up. And obviously yours did not line up. So the paid people are number one. So we started in the 10th Congressional District. I've been actually just, in my free time, watching any kind of county job advertisements that go out looking for anything related to elections, anything. And I send it to our 10th District Congressional Chair, who's awesome. And he puts it into the newsletter and sign up because we're realizing we need to get these, and these are the full-time positions, not just election day. We need to get conservatives applying for these jobs and hired in all these positions. So this is what I do for fun in the evening. I go through looking for these kind of jobs, and then I send them out so that we can blast it out. So we have a lot of qualified people, but they're not necessarily looking for a job, or they're not on that site right then. So we need to get the word out and get those people hired on. And county jobs are good jobs also, but in the state level, all these things we need them to get in there. So you're exactly right. We need eyes there. I don't know why they have so many more eyes than we do all the time, other than they have, I think, big money and they pay their volunteers all the time. They don't really have volunteers. They're all paid off. And then half of them on election day are not from Virginia, because Virginia, we have elections every year. Other states do not. So they have a year off. So they can go hire people from those states, bust them down. We always get them allowed, and we always get them from Maryland, always get them coming in. And because they just drop them off by the droves, and they come in because they don't have an election to be working on their polls, and we always do every November. So, yeah.
I have worked as a paid election official, and one of the flies in the ointment here was, so the first time I worked, I saw they had a list of, who was a Democrat, who was a Republican, to help people, and I saw myself on the Democrat list, and I was like, no. And the precinct chief said, I just divide everybody in half, it doesn't matter.
Strange.
So, and I saw that, that was actually my own personal experience. I do not imagine that that's unique.
Right. Well, we don't register. Well, we don't register by party in Virginia. So you can always, when you go to the poll on primary day, you say which one, which ballot you want, whether you want Republican or Democrat. I don't know. I should have you divided it
But
up.
if they want to have half and half in there to make sure there's a balance, just not asking people, just dividing up the names.
That's strange.
10 people, 5 here, 5 here.
Yeah.
So they don't know. They're not asking.
Oh, they had you as a Democrat when you were working the poll, not as a voter. Oh.
As a paid
Yeah.
poll.
Oh, that's strange.
Oh, wow.
Like inside as an election official.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of weird. Maybe they were short on
And the
Democrat.
precinct chief was the one who divided them up like that.
Yeah. Well, he was probably a Democrat. So. Yeah. Well, that's why being the precinct chief is. So you have a new job to apply for, precinct chief. So, yeah. But yeah. So that's why that's very important. So these are all. But you're all getting to the heart of what the things that we have to deal with. Because you have to get in there and actually. Yes, ma'am.
So I was an observer at a primary in Norfolk. I volunteered, and I'd never been an observer before. The chief at that precinct would not let me have my phone because I was supposed to be checking. It was a primary. I was supposed to be checking off so that the door knockers wouldn't bother the people that had already voted.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be doing it on my phone. She wouldn't let me have my phone.
That should. Yeah.
I don't know if that's.
I know currently you are allowed to have a smartphone. You're not allowed to videotape or take pictures in the polls. You're not allowed to interfere, but you're always supposed to be allowed to have access to your phone. So that would have been a
That's another
problem.
issue. Like,
Yeah.
we can't take a picture of the fraud.
Yeah.
When we see it happening, we can't take a picture of it.
Right.
Especially if
I mean,
you're
I
chased
couldn't
out
do
of the
nothing. She took
room
my phone.
and we're all going home for the night.
Right.
Yeah, but a few linger on and send the same ballots to the machine.
Yeah, we always make sure that we have it's a long day, but our poll workers, even if they have to rotate out, will stay till, sometimes it's late when they're, tabulating machines. So when they win, it's always like 7:05 they're done, right? When it's like we're ahead, then it takes till midnight to figure it out.
Correct.
So it's always a good sign if you're there at 9. Like, oh, maybe we have a chance, but no, we have to be in there and watching things. And Kathleen?
Can't you take a picture of your vote?
Yes. You can't, you have your own votes. People always do that and then they post it. You can't take a picture of the check-in stuff or people or other people's ballots. So yes, you can take a picture. The people always take a picture and tweet it or whatever, saying that they voted for the people, but yes, you can. I guess if you accidentally aim your camera somewhere else, I don't know. Yeah, so,
I know that.
oh, you're allowed to. It's your own
I
ballot.
did anyway, and I said, well,
Oh, well. Sorry, I won't do it in 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things on the internet that I wonder how true they are. in the county, Harris County, where Philadelphia is, there were more votes cast than registered votes.
Yes.
Is that a true statement?
I believe it is. Yeah.
How can this be?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is there a legal challenge to mail-in votes that are pristine in the sense that they have no folds, right? Because if you were to mail in a vote, you would have had to have folded that.
Correct. There are a lot of questions. That is one, and there was an unresolved issue from 2020 that I've never heard. I tried to find it online before we did the training. I couldn't find it. There was the issue with legitimate ballots having a watermark in them, and then they found a bunch with no watermarks that were voted and should not have been voted. So you have that, and I never heard any resolution to that. Then you had, state issues. You had, I believe it was Arizona, where they had them filling them out with Sharpies, and then later saying the machine couldn't read the Sharpies, but the election officials were the one telling them to fill them out with that. So, again, being an election official is really important. And then, having the back of your candidates too. So, helping. So, training candidates on things like, so what I'm finding is we're getting a lot of really good conservative people who love our country and want to run, but they're afraid to run and they don't run because they're basically overwhelmed. They don't know where to start, or, they're, afraid, whatever. So, like, our training is basically, like, we do some messaging, how do you connect with voters, and also, how do you start fundraising? How do you start building your team? Because you as a candidate can't do it alone. You need you need a campaign manager. You need a person in charge of fundraising, all that kind of stuff. So, and then basically getting buy-in from. You really do need buy-in from the party, because otherwise you're not gonna get funding and you're not gonna win. You're gonna be the third party candidate, and then the Democrats are gonna win. It's really just the reality of what ends up happening. So that's just one thing. So we need a new generation of conservative leaders to step forward and run for office. And the bottom one, this is for being judges. Those with the gavels are important in how elections are run and are certified. So we need solid conservatives as judges as well. Now, President Trump thought he had appointed several conservative judges. I'll just leave it at that. Every patriot has a duty to vote, register to vote, don't forget to vote. That includes primaries. More people forget to vote in those or don't care. I don't know how many people don't bother to vote in the school board where I'm from because they're just saying, no, I don't have kids in school anymore. But as we're seeing up in Loudoun, this is a big thing, because it's just, first of all, even if you don't have kids in the school, I don't have kids in the school because I homeschool, fine. But this is the next generation of people that are coming up. These are going to be running the country. You want this indoctrination in critical race theory and other things. It's basically a DNC indoctrination camp, and we need to stop it. Get your friends and family to vote, and help a candidate remind others to vote. Basically, vote, 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 in everything. Election observers and poll workers, this is what I was going to start talking about. Election observers, again, those are the ones that volunteer their time. They're authorized by the party or a candidate to be inside and watch and report. And you definitely would need your smartphone. You would text or call a lawyer if there's an issue. If the election chief couldn't help you with your concern, that's your first thing to do, because you don't want to have animosity there. And the poll workers are the ones that get paid to be inside. Posting stuff on social media is helped too, particularly when you have in big mass. Obviously they get upset by it because they ban people, so they actually care that we're posting this stuff. But consider your source, make sure it's a reputable source. Don't be posting, nonsense, because no one's going to listen to you after that. That's basically what it is. Check the biases. I think everyone here pretty much has a good idea which sources are trustworthy and which ones are, left promoting. So I'm not going to go too much into that. Clean up the voter registration rolls. This is what I said, that was the legislation Jen Higgins tried to get pushed, and they didn't want to do it, of course. You can volunteer with your local group, work with your party. But this is something we're really kind of behind on, so they need to really get into that. You can check obituaries. I know our Minnesota office was going through some things, and they had this whole, there were 8 in the voter roll that were 105 and over years old that had voted. Right. So I guess they're very hardy up there.
Wait a minute, I've got a great story for you. So a friend of mine that lived up here, she moved to Georgia. So she called me one day, she said, good luck, I just voted for you. I'm like, oh, you moved back here now? She's like, no, I got a ballot and I voted for you. I'm like, what?
Wow. And
then if you went to her Facebook page during the Warnock Ossoff election, she was pro-Warnock. I'm like, so she voted in 2 states.
Wow. And a conservative and a not so conservative. Interesting. Yeah, that's what. But we saw that in Nevada too. Remember, they said people saying they were registered to vote, but Nevada was fine with it. They're like, well, we don't care. You can vote here. That's the other state's problem.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's both the states' problem. You can only be in one place.
So, I mean, that's one isolated case. Imagine how many other cases.
Exactly right.
Like
So,
that.
no, exactly right. As we say, dirty data leads to dirty elections. Basically, is what we say, right? So you're going to have a lot of fraud in the voter rolls. So we really need to go through and clean those up and purge them. Grassroots pressure in groups. Calling as one person is helpful, but doing it, and writing as well. Don't overlook writing. And when you get that, kind of from Governor Northam's office saying, thank you so much for your concern, but we don't care, the form letter, respond to it. Respond to it again. Don't just be like, oh, well, they responded. Respond to it. Be a pain. And get all your friends to do the same thing. And then call. And then email. And then just do whatever over and over. Because have you ever had them call DC for something called the White House to pummel them with something, and they actually say, stop calling the White House because the circuits are overloaded? So that means we're doing our job. Use legal avenues. We need more litigants with standing to bring lawsuits on our side. That lawfare we talked about, that is a legal way to change things. It's not a bad thing to do if it's done, if we do it within the confines of the law. And this is what we're seeing right now with the school board up in Loudoun County. They're using it, and they're, he's suing that he was basically let go. He's not completely fired, but let go for speaking out. So.
Can you explain that in more detail? I don't know what
So up in Loudoun County, Virginia, there's the school board, which is probably maybe the worst school board in the Commonwealth. I'm not sure. A bunch of crazy liberals, and they're pushing the critical race theory as well as other, sex books for second graders, and every horrible thing you can think of, they're for it. So basically, this is his name's Tanner. I don't remember his last name, but Tanner something, and he. He's a PE teacher in Leesburg, and he spoke up at a public input session at exercising his First Amendment rights, saying he as a teacher could not lie to these children, telling these kids that he loves his kids that are there. He can't be telling boys, yes, you're a girl if you want to be a girl, or whatever all this stuff. He said, I'm not going to lie to kids. That's not my job, and this is harmful to children. So he was immediately suspended. He's not allowed on any school property, like he's some kind of sexual offender. He's not allowed anywhere on school property. So they decided to sue Alliance Defending Freedom, who's Mike Ferris's group, who's local with us, took up his case, and they're representing him. They heard his case yesterday at circuit court. The judge, actually I know, and he's a former Commonwealth's attorney for us, for the GOP, so I'm hoping that he rules the right way. We'll know on Monday. But he spoke out, and then he sued. He could have easily just been, given in or done whatever to keep his job, but he didn't. And our pastor, my pastor, I go to Cornerstone Chapel, is in the news. You'll see him getting ripped by the left right now, Pastor Gary Hamrick, because he let us do the signature drive at the church, and now a couple other churches are saying, okay, we're going to join and do the signature drive too. Oh, because there's a ballot petition to recall the school board members. So we allowed it, and now some other churches are allowing it. School board members are not party related, supposedly, so it's non-political. We're just we're not promoting it. Our pastor's not handing it out. He's allowing it to occur, which is well within our rights. So this is something to watch on Monday because it's going to set precedent for the rest of Virginia. I hope Fairfax County is watching because they're next. So, and then another gal she's the head of the Loudoun Women's Club, I saw filed suit, like a racism suit against the schools as well because of the CRT stuff. So we're hitting them with law, which is exactly they're not used to, because normally we're just like, oh, okay, well, let's just work together. This is what they're always saying. But work together means Democrats get whatever they want, and we roll over, and we're done. We need to be done. We need to be America first. We need to be family first, God first. We need to be back to where we were, and we need to fight evil. We need candidates who stand up to evil. Like, I'm a big Rand Paul girl. I love Rand. Because why? Because it doesn't matter how unpopular and people hate him. He's like, I don't care. You're evil. This is wrong. This is against the Constitution. We need people like that. Governor DeSantis, Donald Trump. It's 3. How many people we have in the GOP and conservatives? We need people like that. And I keep telling the leaders, like, you guys need to take note, because this is the kind of people that we want to elect. We don't want these squishy rollover McCain types anymore. We're done with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We're done.
If they want
possibly, and most of them know, the school stuff, they can go to the NLT website on Facebook.
Okay.
The letter.
Oh yes, I've seen them on Twitter. I've seen them on Twitter. Are you a member of that? Oh, okay. Ian Pryor, if you guys have, he's heading it up there. He's his Fight for Schools. He's heading it up. He's been on. I think Tucker may have had him on the other night. I'm not sure. But he's a parent in Loudoun County who got involved because so there was a secret Facebook group. This is the other thing. This is how they're suing them. There's a secret Facebook group of school board members and some teachers who discussed targeting parents for harassment in Loudoun who had the nerve to stand up for their children, which is a violation of their open meetings rules, basically is how they're suing them on this. So Ian was targeted. His neighbor turned him in to be targeted because he was anti-critical race. So they turned him in. They didn't realize he's a lawyer who likes to fight, and now he's heading up the whole thing. So yeah, turned him in like the Gestapo.
Do you remember when McCarthyism was a bad thing?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it depends what side you're on. Yeah.
Just fill in the gap for me there. Turn him into who?
To the secret Facebook group, people, which consists of the Loudoun County school board members. We're trying to recall 6 out of 9. The other 3 are okay. Mine is pretty good, but he's going to be leaving to run for Congress, and the other 2 are, not horribly offensive, so or they're not going after them.
School board members who want to target parents.
Correct, and teachers.
And teachers.
And one of our board of supervisors, you ever heard of Julie Briskman? She's the one famous for giving the finger to President Trump in Loudoun County. This is the kind of things we're famous for. Yes. So he came because he has his golf course up here, Trump National, and she gave him the finger. She became famous, and now she's a supervisor. And she was part of the secret Facebook group, so maybe we should recall her too.
Is that some sort of harassment?
Yes.
You could bring a charge?
Yes. Yes, so they're litigating it. Yeah, so they're going after the recall petition, and we'll see what happens in court.
Money for that.
They're raising money, we're giving money, and we're signing the petitions, and we're opening up venues for lots of it. So yeah, it's crazy, but this is what I mean. This is going to set precedent for the rest of the Commonwealth. Yeah. A lot of them are involved. Just the fact that, most parents don't care about politics, really. They're not involved. They just want to do their thing. But this fact that, the teacher, a lot of people like this teacher. A lot of people like their teachers. And the fact that a lot of people, even Democrat parents I'm hearing from in Loudoun, are alarmed at the fact that they went after this good teacher who on his own time was just speaking out on behalf of the children. They're alarmed by the fact that they just erased people. So it's interesting to see parents that have had no interest in politics, working the polls, whatever, at these rallies, holding signs and, threatening to get rid of all these people. And it's good. So we need to keep it alive. And our conservative candidates need to pay attention to make sure that this is their issue, a big issue when they're running in November.
Well, I think that with, the answer to Teresa, what I'm thinking is that we try to hit people with facts so much. And the facts, a lot of times, it goes over their head, and they don't understand it. Democrats do a very good job on winning on emotion. If you start talking about racial stuff, and don't even call it critical race theory, you just give them the facts without the label. Yeah. I think we'll get more people over on this side, but we have to give them the facts. We have to let them know everything. These are people, first of all, who cut class in school, who will probably, I'm not saying anything wrong, but some might have had an IEP, and at the end of the day, they have no interest in scholastic things, and so they just want to get it quick. She's racist, that's fine. Right. Okay, but they still vote. Right. So I think that's the messaging.
So you will like our messaging that Kathleen just asked me to give that to the women's group in Norfolk, but we have a messaging one that talks exactly about that.
It's not overloaded with facts, but they don't care.
No, and you need to connect with voters, but so we're big. We talk about that a lot, but basically, we're big spreadsheet people. Like, why are you upset? Look at this spreadsheet. Don't you see the bar graph? And they're like, want. And you have people that are like, I care about you and your family and your commute. And maybe they don't, but the thing's like, oh, she remembered my name. It's the personal thing.
So you say you have a messaging?
Yes, it's called Go for the Heart, which I like to call Go for the Jugular, but it's called Go for the Heart. Yeah, which is how to. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Go for it all. Go for the whole system.
So this is for candidates?
It's for everyone.
Candidates?
Everyone.
And it's how to present yourself in a sound bite?
It's that's part of it. It's understanding, basically understanding the left. Am I blocking? Did you say, Diana? You not say?
I just can't see the little
Oh. That's okay. That's just slides that is like titles for other slides that aren't up yet. But yeah, it's basically what you're saying, a little soundbite, but it's understanding how the left truly thinks about it, because there's not just like nuanced differences of, oh, we're all the same, but we are different on a couple issues. It's not that, and we have to truly understand what they think. But I don't want to give all that away now. But yeah, but that's exactly right.
They're really good.
That's my favorite training, I admit. I like this one too, but that's my favorite. So, yeah, messaging, because this is what we have a lot of good candidates that don't know how to sell their stuff, so then they lose. So even without fraud, they end up not losing because they just don't know how to connect. Example, I have a friend who was running, and he was running against a woman who's a touchy-feely, whatever, up where I'm from, and he's a lawyer, and all he talked about were taxes and the toll road fees nonstop. And I was like, it's like, okay, you are a lawyer who's talking about nothing about money. Like, this is what, and our toll, it's called the Greenway. It's like $7 one way. Most people don't use that. So it's kind of, people look at like, I'm not going to use that to commute. It's too expensive, because it is expensive. But if all your messaging is about that, you've already alienated yourself, because you're already in this little percentage of kind of elitists who use this regularly. So you're missing the rest of the 90% of voters that you're trying to reach out to. Meanwhile, she's a mental health person, and she's just like, oh, she can read you quickly what you're interested in and be like, oh, your children in the school. Children in the schools are my favorite issue, whatever. And then connect to them. And he raised $1 million, and he got 40% of the vote. $1 million in a county election, and got 40%. And I think it's messaging. And I told him that, yeah, it's important. We have to have a goal. What do we want to accomplish? We have to look at it as a civil rights issue. This is what this is. We have to make it that. Election reform is a civil rights issue, because every vote that's fraudulent cancels out someone else's legal vote. And you have a right to your legal vote as a citizen. Go on the offense. This is what I'm always telling conservatives. Don't play defense and sound like you're guilty and you're defending yourself. You didn't do anything wrong. What are some things they attack conservatives with, like right away? Racism, we said. What was the other one? Like, who do we hate?
Black people.
Black people. We hate women. We hate immigrants. I mean, I don't know. I guess we hate everybody. We hate ourselves. But, so we need to be proactive. I mean, when Ken Cuccinelli was running, he was really good at being proactive and making the Democrats spend their money on responding. Instead, every year they sit there waiting for the attacks, and then they spend their money responding. No, I don't hate women. I don't hate women. Well, you sound whiny and defensive. So just be on the Here's why I support women, because, I'm pro-family, and, be for stuff. But treat it like a civil rights issue. Your vote is your bond to the government, and someone steals that when they steal your vote. Some things to look at for changing. We want to turn Election Day into a national holiday. So everyone's off. You don't have an excuse. You can't vote on Election Day. You have from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. to vote.
No, didn't they just extend that to 8?
Oh, did they?
That's what I was told.
Okay. I didn't see that, but okay, that's fine. We'll have a longer national holiday. It's fine. I'll be at the polls whenever they close.
Just as sort of an introduction to what you're about
We
to
got
talk
it.
about, you must have acquainted yourself with the Carter-Baker election reform process that went on back in the 80s, I think it was. Okay, so they came up with all of these wonderful attributes of a fair election and criticisms of bad election process. They put it all out, right? And the Democrats immediately adopted everything that they were against.
Yeah.
All right, like motor voter was the first one, and unsolicited mail-in ballots and all that stuff. I wish Jimmy Carter was still up and active, and he would probably be talking about how ridiculous his party has become, and it's a shame,
Yeah.
it's such a terrible shame.
Well, because they were, I mean, so I come from, I always say, I came out as a Republican in 5th grade because I grew up in New Jersey to Democrat parents, huge Democrat. I mean, coming home from college, having, Mike Dukakis balloons in my house, I mean, it was horrible. But yeah, my parents were big Carter people, so I take issue with no. Yeah, I was 8 and I loved Reagan. I knew it then, even then, and I said, I remember saying to my parents, I think that they wouldn't have taken the hostages if, this guy seems kind of wimpy. And my parents were like, I don't want to hear any more. There's a funny story. They said, I don't want to hear any more about Ronald Reagan. I said, okay. So being contrary, I wrote on a piece of paper, Reagan, because I wasn't allowed to say it. So then I would just hold it up. Like when the news is on, I'd be like, so yeah, my dad loved it. Yeah, no. And he was, they were Democratic forever and ever. But, well, typical Democrats, we kept moving states because of high taxes and then vote Democrat. And then, yeah. Of course, no. I told my dad that they were liberal locusts. They would move and feed off of a place, raise the taxes, destroy it, move to the next place. So we were in New Jersey, high property taxes that he voted for. Moved to Pennsylvania. I guess it was income tax, because then he ended up in Florida. He's like, no state income tax. I said, they're gonna, yeah, it's liberal logic. That's what I just say. It's liberal logic. Ban ballot harvesting for sure. Enforce absentee ballot rules regarding application and witness signatures. We basically need to get rid of everything that the General Assembly's just done and put it back how it was in Virginia. Every absentee ballot needs to be requested, not just sent out, okay? Because voting, basically, I'm going to say this later, voting is, a privilege. I mean, and it's also your choice. You shouldn't be made to vote. If you're, frankly, too lazy to go and vote or request a ballot or whatever, then don't vote. I don't really care. But it's not the government's job to make sure and hand it out to you like you're in kindergarten and make sure that you have it in front of you.
Can I ask you one question? And
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people say this. When you talk about messaging, and I hear you saying that voting is a privilege, but maybe do we think that's the right word to use? Maybe if we just...
I say it's a right, for sure.
Well, no, not a right, but when it's served better, we can do it.
But it is our duty to get out there and vote. We live in this country because people do.
Right. Right? They need to care. They need to care and be invested. All right, I'm getting the wrap up here. So universal mail-in we just talked about, right? Choosing not to vote is a choice, is a better way to say that. We need to process absentee ballots before Election Day like they do in Florida so that we have Election Day and not Election Week, so that the absentees are counted, and then Election Day we're counting Election Day ballots. Fight for voter ID laws. Okay. Big tech, they're terrible, right? Repeal their Section 230 protections, enforce antitrust laws, break revenue model. This is just referring to this is our CEO, Ned Ryan. You guys know Ned? I know you know Ned. Yeah. He's on Tucker all the greatness, where he talks about how we have to basically get rid of big tech protections. Okay. And remember what our goal is winning elections, because we can't make changes if we don't win elections. Actually have a position where we can actually change this legislation and other things, it doesn't matter. Okay, now's the time to act. Think about what things that you're able to do and do them. You guys have been asking questions. Any more last minute questions before? Yeah.
I just want to say there is a bit of good news coming out of it. I think the Democrats have gone too far, and I think they're starting to realize against critical race theory or against anything that's being happening. There's a lot more teachers and parents coming on talking against this kind of stuff. But again, they can't give their full into so much retribution.
Yeah.
It goes back. But there's more and more coming.
And I think things like if this lawsuit goes well for Tanner on Monday, I think more teachers will start to come out because they'll see, because they're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of everything. I mean, even public input sessions, the teachers used to come and sit there, but the superintendent would sit in the back and he had a clipboard. He knew what he was doing. He was going to make sure they all got up to speak. For it was always we need more money for the school. We need more money for the school. Do you know that Loudoun County school board budget is almost $2 billion with a B dollars? For the school, and 70% of my property taxes go for just some kind of generic training, trying to think whether they can do it. So I'm like, I'll train you. It's fine. They can come and see. But it's encouraging because these aren't even activists that have normally been involved. They're just like dads and local people that just want to get involved, and that's encouraging to me.
You mentioned also that we have to get good candidates to run.
Yeah.
We have to get candidates to run.
Yeah.
In Virginia, I forgot how many in the last election we get.
We're unchallenged.
Unchallenged. That does speak to
exactly. That's what I was saying. Our local board of supervisors, we have one lady, she used to be our mayor, and she's very likable. She's a Democrat because she's very good. She can meet you once, and in 10 years she'll be like, oh, hey, and remember everything that she talked about. So she's impressive, but everyone likes her. But we never run anyone against her. She's a Democrat. Never. They're like, well, we won't win. Like, but make her spend money. Because she just has this war chest that she just moves over to contested races, but we don't run anyone. So I agree. But all right, I think we're about out of time. But thank you. If you have any questions, you can grab me after. Like I said, my business card is in there too. So if you're interested in any other kind of trainings, like I told Kathleen, I'm going to do a messaging one for her group. So thank you very much. Fight. Fight a good fight.
Liz, there are a couple of items going on right now that are very concerning, and that was the dirty book that was a very explicit book issued to 9th graders. How did that happen, and now what's the aftermath?
So I'm not really sure how it happened, but there are several books like this. I mean, so you'll see them. So I don't know if you've ever seen, but they'll show the parents that get up at school board meetings. So the school board approves these disgusting books, basically, and it's for even younger than 9th grade, some of these. And they'll get up at the school board meeting, they use their 2 minutes, and they just open the book and they start reading from it. And they had one of the school board members say, whoa, that is completely inappropriate to be reading here and here. And they're like, well, this is what you're having my 6th grader read in the classroom. And then the next parent will get up and start reading it, and they're like, okay, enough of this, we're going to adjourn if you keep reading this kind of stuff. And it's like, this is what you're giving to children, but it's inappropriate to read in front of a school board of adults. This should be, frightening. So that has woken up some parents too. Some parents don't care. Like, I'm kind of amazed at the number. I mean, they're on the liberal side. They either don't know what their kids are learning and don't want to be bothered because it's babysitting for them and they're just, not interested. Or they just are fine with it. Like, they're like, well, our kids need to be exposed to everything. No, they don't. They're children. They should not be exposed to everything. That's right. And you're their parent. It's your job to protect them and make sure that their minds are kept protected and clear, that their body, would you hand them over to a pedophile to babysit? I hope not. I hope not. Yeah.
What's coming next?
Yeah. And, but eventually that's what you're doing. You're filling just garbage and inappropriate trash. A lot of it's inappropriate for even adults to be reading. But let alone children. And why are we, it's the same with the homosexual agenda in the schools too. Starting at the youngest age, they're doing this. Okay, 2nd graders shouldn't be learning about sex at all. Like, why are you telling them about anything? And it's not the role of the school to be telling them about it anyway. It's the role of the parents. We have family life education that they can opt out into or out of. I don't know what it is at this point. Where those classes are specifically for that. And the parents will know whether they're, learning that stuff. But they weave it into everything else. It's in English. It's in, they weave it into everything. So when you're opting your child out of something, like, we'll get them in science, we'll get them in math. Okay, so if Jenny has 2 mommies plus, the 2 daddies next door, how many people live on the street? They get around stuff like that, and they're poisoning kids' minds. So I'm not exactly what they're doing. I know parents are up in arms about that. But add that with it, so you've got a group of parents mad about that, and then you've got critical race theory on top of it at the same time. I'm hoping there's just enough outrage. I've been seeing with a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people at these rallies, which is heartening. But they need to make the connection between what's happening at the school that they're protesting and conservative candidates are the ones fighting for it. This is what we're trying to make the link. Like, it's your Democrats that you're voting for that are promoting this. So don't you dare go in November and then vote for these same people and then be surprised next year that your kids are reading pornography and be here with your sign again. What do you think you're voting for? This is exactly the people that stand for this. So this is why we need to educate them on the link between it. Say, this is not an isolated thing. These people that you're electing are promoting this stuff in the schools and in society. They're part of the problem, right? And they're going to just keep voting that way. This is what they're going to end up with. But, yeah.
Thank you, Liz. As you all know, the school board is under litigation right now. There's going to be a court session 8:30 Monday morning in General District Court. Several of our folks on school board, Laura Hughes, Vicki Manning, and Carolyn Weems. Well, the lawsuit is only representing one person in the case, Tim Anderson's representing Vicky on behalf of the other two ladies I just mentioned, because it was an illegal meeting held last Tuesday. And at that meeting, they decided they were going to move this Tuesday meeting to Wednesday. Well, then they had a special meeting yesterday morning, then they decided that those two meetings are canceled, so we assume it's going to be the 22nd. The reason why this is critical is because we had planned on staging a very large rally this coming Tuesday, because the critical race theory, not to ever have it in Virginia Beach schools, or at least kill it right now, that was a resolution brought forward by these same ladies. So now we're going to have to move it, I guess, to we'll find out Monday, the 22nd. So in addition to the collective bargaining resolution, we want to kill collective bargaining. So you'll just have to stand by until Monday, then we'll find out from the school board and about exactly what's going to transpire there. And Laura, would you like to add anything to what I just said?
So we had a special meeting on July 1st, which was to go into closed session and discuss the superintendent's evaluation. What did I say? June 1st. Jumped ahead a little bit, sorry. So unbeknownst to anyone until to me, to Vicki Manning, to Carolyn Weems until we got there, was they had added a motion to change this upcoming regular meeting from June 8th to June 9th. So this was introduced by Jessica Owens. You have to have 3 school board members. So she was joined by Trinace Riggs and Beverly Anderson, because the June 8th regular meeting that's been on the calendar all year happens to coincide with the primary, where another school board member, Kim Melnick, is in a primary that day. So when we read back into open to vote on the superintendent's evaluation, I asked if they're waiting to turn the cameras on, because you have to vote in public, and we were going to be voting on this, and I was told, no, we don't need the cameras on. Okay, well, this part's a public meeting, and the school board attorney said, we just opened the door to the room, but you don't let anyone in the building, so opening a door is kind of irrelevant. We were also told that there was a notice on the front of the building, and this is like 9 o'clock at night on a Tuesday night when people know you're in a closed session. Nobody's showing up for meetings like this. Letting you know that if you want to come in, you can, and that the school board attorney had left her cell phone number with the person at the front desk, so that if you wanted to come in, they could let her know, and she had been monitoring her cell phone. So, and nobody had called. So you don't let anyone in the building, you open the door, you left the sign, you left your number, in a building where nobody's allowed in, well after hours, and nobody would have known about this. So Vicki Manning did not go that evening because she believed that the meeting was illegal, and in hindsight, yeah, it actually was, given that they had added this to the agenda. Carolyn Weems and Jennifer Franklin and Sharon Felton, the 4 of us voted against the change due to the transparency. The public should be in on this. If it's part of a public meeting, when we're conducting public business in a public meeting in a public building, the public should know, and the public should be allowed to weigh in, and that didn't happen. So we did vote against it. I actually turned my phone on and recorded the rest of the public meeting, and yes, there will be a court date Monday morning to decide whether or not FOIA was violated. This isn't a long chain of FOIA violations. It is very, very clear that that majority has little mini meetings so that they're all on the same page ahead of time to vote, to make statements. And the public is being cut out of the conversation. These people have forgotten we work for the public. Yeah, so, yeah.
Thank you.
So we're going to do a full court press. When I say we, I'm hoping the Tea Party, of course, they're going to be joining us, and along with the GOP and the Libertarian Party, and more importantly, the parents of the children in this Virginia Beach public school system, which is covering somewhere around 67,000 students. It continues to decline over the years. And if we can't get 5 to 8 to 1,000 people out there like we did on the Second Amendment, we had about 1,800 people outside and packed up, you couldn't even get in the building, then shame on us. Shame on the parents. Shame is the only word I can think of, that you are allowing child abuse on your loved ones, in this case, your children. Dividing this nation, critical race theory, is just, it's the closest thing to Marxism that there is. Dividing and destroying this nation. So every parent out there, those who are listening on YouTube right now or on Facebook, I was going to show you the Loudon school board meeting where the 9th graders that were issued that book. But when I post this up to YouTube, it asks, is this suitable for children? And the language is not suitable, so I didn't show it today. So it's up there. Just pull up Loudon County School Board and the 9th grader books. It's a filthy book that they've been issuing now. So announcement from the floor. Of course, everybody who's going to vote today who lives in the 82nd, we would encourage you to drive out to Galilee Episcopal Church and vote. And then we have Tuesday, we have another one coming up. And now I would like to ask Diana Howard to make her announcements.
Hello everybody, I'm Diana Howard, Chair of the Virginia Beach Tea Party, and tomorrow is our 5th annual Garden Tea Party. And if you have not gotten your tickets yet, you can get them from me or Teresa or Maureen. We all have tickets available for purchase. They are $25 in advance or $30 at the door tomorrow. So tomorrow at 3 p.m. we have assorted teas, lemonade, selection of freshly made finger sandwiches, desserts, door prizes. Wear your best hat. We have a prize for best hat, a prize for best teacup. We also have raffles to win numerous prizes that have been donated so that we can raise money to fight some of this stuff that's going on. You can also get the tickets on Eventbrite, but today's the last day to get them on Eventbrite. Okay? So let us know if you want to get tickets, and I'll be there in the back. And Teresa wants to get up and say something. What?
I don't want to get up. You should just tell them about Tanya Gold.
Oh, yes, our guest speaker is Tanya Gold, and she's been a victim of human trafficking, so you may want to hear from her. Thank you.
I threw all my good clothes away.
You do not have to wear fancy dress. You can wear your shorts if you want to come. Yes. You don't have to be fancy dressed, but girls, we like to have fun and we like to dress up. So,
Definitely.
yeah, so we're going to look pretty for you.
Here's my hat.
All right.
Thank you, Diana. And because they traveled so far, and I love to embarrass people, especially young girls. Liz, would you like to invite your 2 daughters to come up there and introduce them, please?
These are 2 of my 3 daughters. So I have 4 boys and 3 girls. This is Isabella, who is 17, and Katerina, who is 14, sorry. I sometimes get confused. Yeah, I've got 7 children. So my oldest just graduated from Regent University down here, and he is going to be starting Regent Law in the fall. So I'm excited about that. My next daughter, Sophia, is going to be a sophomore at Regent. She's studying marketing. And then Isabella will be a senior in high school. Then I have a son, Ethan, who's not here, who will be 11th grade. Katerina will be 9th grade. Brandon will be 5th grade.
And I have a 3-year-old too, so my little midlife surprise. So he's really fun. So I told my husband jokingly, I was like, we will never be able to live in one of those nice 55 and older communities because we'll always have little guy with us. So anyway, so these are my big helpers. Isabella came and did a training with me the other night, and they both wanted to come down, so I brought them both down for the ride. So it was nice. So.
I thought y'all were sisters.
You give him some kind of prize. I don't know what.
Do either of them sing or dance?
I guess we can learn now. No, just kidding. Girls, don't worry. No, they don't. They're very shy.
Well, girls, thank you very much for joining your mothers here this morning, and I think you did a great job. I don't care what the rest of the crowd says. Thank you, girls.
And now's the point in time we take any additional announcements. Diane made hers. Anybody else have anything? Okay, now we have, it's your 2 cents. Anybody who would like to come up and rant on anything, please do take the moment now. Except about magma, yes. Yeah, 2-minute limit. Okay, we're not having anybody. Anybody but Bill. Bill.
No. I want to hear from Liz what she thinks about this idea. So I have, where I live presents the problems associated with goodness, I suppose, in that the people who represent me at the state and federal level, well, not the federal level, not yet, but at the state level, are great people who I would never want to run against. So if I wanted to be a candidate, I would just be defeating people who I like. Now, what about the idea of running in Democrat primaries and making the opposition pay from their huge campaign coffers to defeat me? Well, I'm just saying me as a generality. Do you? All right. So.
Well, just know that if you want to run later as GOP, maybe taint it, and they'll say, he ran in the Democrat Party.
That's right.
You can't really
That's
trust
right.
him, so.
But I'm a libertarian, and I'm not in any danger of getting anybody elected to any office anywhere. So I was thinking, is there some other strategy that we can use to try to waste their money as opposed to raise our own? What do you think? I mean, that's the one thing that came to mind for me, and I don't know whether it even makes sense. But yes.
Try and go through our neighborhoods and get somebody to run for the Constitution Party, somebody to run for the Libertarians, somebody to run independent. Just overload it. Blanket every election with a living body, or a body that can be propped up and counted president.
So,
Which would even
what
be
would that do if you and I ran Libertarian and Constitution against Jen Kiggins? I mean, like, what would that do for us?
Well, it spreads them out. They have to try and fight all of us in some kind of way.
Yeah, but doesn't that make it worse on the candidate from the GOP? I don't see that it makes it better for the GOP candidate.
Well, that's kind of a difference I have with some people.
Oh, why don't you?
If we don't vote for, if we don't vote for the Republican, then the Democrats automatically win, and that's a myth. That almost never happens. You can only divide a vote so much, and it doesn't mean that each of the people are going to get on the ballot, but it occupies the other side enough to have them spend money to try and fight all that they can.
They won't fight it. If they're not a reasonable candidate, they won't go. That's a
But
loss for us.
I don't know about a constitutionalist because the Democrats have abandoned the Constitution, but libertarians could make a good case in a Democrat primary, right? Because of the stated policies of the Libertarian Party statewide and national. So, for whatever good it is, it seems to me that we libertarians who are not going to win elections should be running in Democrat primaries over and over again. Not necessarily me, because I have bad knees and can't walk door to door. Anyway, yes. Any comment on this, and I'm done.
No, what I think is, come on up.
I
I don't even hear back there.
What, you mean like go to their meetings? Sure.
We can't hear you, but Eric, do you want to come up? Because we can't hear you back there if you're not coming up. No.
What I've always said, the Justice Democrats did this thing masterfully. The Justice Democrats, they got together, they got money behind them, and they had a plan. And if you go on YouTube, this is where AOC comes from, this is where Ilhan Omar comes from, this is where Rashid Tlaib. They had a plan, and I think they got in contact with the Turks, or whatever, Young Turks, and they put together a plan, and they got a Harvard guy, and they took over the Democratic Party from within. And then they started winning primary by primary by primary by primary with this socialist message. That's why we have an AOC and a Green New Deal. And they became successful. For whatever reasons, conservatives or whatever, whatever he's talking about, people for some reason don't want to do that. They don't want to plan. We are so in different tents. And even they're in tents too, but they still come together to beat us. Yeah. So that's something that I think that we would need to do at some point. There needs to be some kind of, put some kind of organization together to winning elections again. And Bill, I will disagree with you on this one. Libertarians can win. It's just going to have to be something organized.
I will say we've started really trying to focus on coalitions of conservative groups in Virginia since I took over in 2019, because the left always works together, even if they don't like each other, they always come together. We're always, shooting at each other, and then we kill each other off, and then they have all sorts of ammunition used against us in November. So we're joining another one this year of other basically conservative groups to work together and fight the left. We don't agree on every single issue, but on the core ones we do, and we need to unite because we each other are not the enemy. The left is right now the enemy to our way of life, and we need to all be facing outward and not.
Okay, Kenny Golden's got the next two.
The Trump administration had 4 years to seek an indictment against Biden, and that's why we are where we are right now.
Just want to speak a couple of minutes about what these days are for us. Yesterday was the 4th of June, and tomorrow is going to be the 6th of June. They're very important days to us. The pictures we had up here that we were showing in the commemoration to Lieutenant Riley, we saw some pictures of the crosses that are in the various cemeteries. If you have not had an opportunity to go to these cemeteries here and overseas, particularly if you go to Europe, make sure you take the time to go there, because our government spends a lot of money and administration to maintain these, to commemorate days like yesterday and days like tomorrow for all the young men and here recently young women that have put their lives out there to sacrifice. I'm going to tell you just a real short story. I was asked to fly an aircraft from down in Spain, all the way across Spain, up into across France, into Brussels, Belgium, for my chief of staff. I was on the Enterprise, and so I planned the flight, flew up there. Weather was kind of bad on the way back, and he said, we are going to go to Luxembourg on the way back. So the weather was so bad we had to fly at about 200 feet over there, fly in a helicopter and land at Luxembourg. And the reason we went to Luxembourg is because there's a cemetery at Luxembourg. And it's a U.S. cemetery maintained by our folks, and it is absolutely gorgeous, like all the ones in Normandy, like all the ones at Cambridge. They're just gorgeous, like the ones in Hawaii. Wherever U.S. personnel are buried, we maintain that cemetery and make it beautiful. We went specifically to go to a grave site. We were going to his father, this guy's name, Lonnie McClung. We were going to his father's grave site. Sam McClung, who was killed on my birthday, Christmas Eve, 1945, 1944, in the Battle of the Bulge. All those people that were killed in the Battle of the Bulge as the Germans ran through there are located on a hillside there, and General Patton is buried with them as well. So just if you get a chance, either look on the internet and look at the American grave sites, or if you get a chance to go to our grave site out here, take the time to go and look at them, because they're maintained and they're beautiful, and they specifically talk about the folks that gave their lives. We lost over almost 400 in the Battle of Midway. The Japanese lost over 3,000. They lost 4 carriers. We lost the USS Yorktown. But think about the 175,000 young men that were pushed on shore tomorrow, D-Day, the 6th of June in Europe, and the 6th of June, 1944. I ask you to remember those people on the 4th of June and on the 6th of June.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mine won't be that important, it won't be that long anyway. I was listening to the young ladies over here. You said you have 3 daughters. Where's your mom? Oh. Yeah, I like what...
She lets us drive.
Good, right. The oldest sister is the one with glasses. Wise. What we were talking about, I like what Eric was saying, and kind of piggybacking on what Dr. Duke was saying too. If we can get around and get enough people to at least show up at these events of the other side, and we don't have to picket them necessarily, but know that, have a presence and let them know that we're opposing, that we know what their real agenda is. It does make a difference there. And a quick update too on the Constitution Party is now the Patriot Party. I got their portfolio the other day. They're trying to reach out and work with the libertarians and other conservatives in the other parties too. And we're still formulating a little bit of a battle strategy, and I'll have some more info coming up.
Thank you very much. Chair, entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you so much. Opposed? Stay here for the meeting. Stay for all meetings.
I don't eat much in the morning. I've been on a crazy diet. I have like a little bar.
I need to be on a diet.
I dropped 50 pounds.
That's what I'm trying to do. How did you do it?
Like on this Optivia. I love it. Like, yeah, it's like little things to eat, but also it's like a book of wellness. So it's kind of also like how you look at, you know, whatever my husband wants on. He's like, I'm not reading. I'm not doing homework.
No hot mics left?
Oh yeah, this one's right here.